All right, welcome back, everybody, to the 16th week of our Tech Bytes Python session. 16th week, that means that we have hit our 4-month mark. Whoa, has time flown by? We started way back in the early weeks of June. Now it is almost the end of October. Crazy to see how fast time has flown and obviously the weather has changed correspondingly as well. And in case you are coming in from the Intro to Programming course, welcome back to the 8th week, aka the second month mark of our Tech Bytes course. Glad to have you guys with us here today. Hi, Ms. Clausen, glad to see you are back here. The next round of classes, so this is a continuous type of course which we got going. We have just been progressing. We started off with very basic types of material. And now we've just been progressing, making more projects. So that's what we're going to be continuing with today. In case you want to find some of our old lessons, our old courses, they're all uploaded to our Schomburg Library YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Tech Bytes where you can find them. Let me know if you have any further questions. And were you able to join the Google Classroom as well? Great, awesome. All right, so thank you guys for joining us today, and without any further ado, let's get to it. In case you guys don't already know who I am, guys, my name is Rayan Siddiqui. I am a senior at James B. Conant High School. I left a program, made various apps for the App Store, and a dozen different websites, and really like making content for places like YouTube as well. I run a sports talk show with some of my friends, make some of my own tech YouTube videos, while writing some articles for the internet as well. As always, if you want to check out what I have been up to, you can always check on my website at rayansiddiqui.com. All right, so now let's get down to today's agenda. That being that firstly, we're going to start off with our daily fun fact relating the programming language which we are studying to a real fact in the world. Then we're going to recap our new project, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, going over what the project entails and the code which we wrote 2 weeks ago. Then we're going to get started on the logic part of today, working more with some if-else statements, implementing that into our tic-tac-toe game. And then we'll get started coding it. So firstly, our fun fact. Now today's cool Python fun fact of the day is that Python, the language of Python, is used to save lives in developing countries through the Gates Foundation. All right, so let's dissect that piece by piece like every week we do. So essentially, all I'm saying is that the language of Python is able to help us save lives through this foundation called the Gates Foundation. So let's talk about what is the Gates Foundation. Well, the Gates Foundation is sort of like a charity. They're an organization which works in third world and developing countries to help provide resources like food, water, and mainly their main mission is to not only provide those essential resources, but also use technology and computer science to ensure that the families who they're giving the food and all these resources to, they have a chance to get back up on their feet and help provide for themselves and their community members. And the Gates Foundation, if it hasn't been given away from the last name, it was started by Bill Gates, the founder and former CEO of Microsoft. His father founded it, and now Bill Gates, and his wife, Melinda Gates, they run the foundation. So we understand their mission statement. Their goal is to obviously help people in countries like developing countries, right? But how does the language of Python come into play? How is Python specifically able to help us in ensuring that less lives are lost due to issues like poverty? Well, Python is a major aspect. So the goal here is to lessen the number of lives lost due to a lack of resources in developing countries, right? Well, the way that Python is nicely able to come in and help us achieve this goal is that firstly, we got to remember that Python is a great language for data processing. Now, over this course, Intro to Programming, and our Python session in general, we've talked about this many times, talking about how Python is amazing language for interpreting data and analyzing and making predictions based off of that data. We've talked about real-world examples of how an app like, say, Facebook or Instagram, there are so many specific posts catered to you on your recommended page, and that's mainly because of Python tracking what have you been watching, what have you been looking into. And Python then is able to compile and analyze that data to make predictions and recommend certain videos, certain posts to you. And similarly, Python serves that same foundation through the Gates Foundation, in the sense that Python is an amazing language for performing something called linear regression. And through linear regression, it's able to make predictions as to what certain thing is hurting a country the most and how we can use those predictions to help provide more resources. Now, let's backtrack. I just used a pretty big word right there. Python is performing linear regression, that word I'm highlighting right there. Well, we actually, going back, we talked about linear regression in our Hack Central program. We actually did a whole Hack Central devoted to linear regression and what that entails. So if you want to check that out, you can always find it in our Tech Bytes playlist. But basically, guys, linear regression is a mathematical function through which we are able to make predictions. Basically, there is a line of best fit, but how does that line of best fit come into play with saving lives? Well, we are able to map out and see what certain thing is hurting the country the most, what specific region is suffering the most. We can take a look at, are there diseases? Like if you take a look at the country, maybe we're talking about Africa, certain parts of Africa, there are diseases like malaria. And now you can even account into COVID-19. Well, linear regression in Python is able to predict where and how these certain diseases are causing poverty and hurting families. And using that data, looking at where, which parts, which cities are being hurt the most, the Gates Foundation and many other organizations, other charities, you name, maybe like the Red Cross, other charities are able to come out and help provide more resources where they are needed. Now, guys, this just goes to show us once more time of the reach of what we're studying is truly through the roof. There is no limit. We've talked about some cool applications of how we can use Python to place orders at Domino's for pizza, and now just showing on a much more humanitarian level how the programming language of Python, like many others, is able to have a near and dear impact. And although we may not experience the impacts in suburbs like which we are living in, it's nice to be reminded that it's really helping out in other countries which are not sometimes in the U.S., but mainly outside of the U.S. And especially now, thinking about the COVID-19 pandemic and how much of a crazy world, to say the least, it has caused, right? How crazy it has shifted lives. Well, we think that it has shifted our lives in our Tech Bytes course, shifting us from in-person to online. Well, in countries which are developing, like going back to the Africa example, well, they have been hit on a much more hard level. And it's cool to know that something which we're learning has an effect which can help people out. So yeah, hopefully you guys found that cool. All right. So now let's transition on to our tic-tac-toe project, which we have been working on for the past 2 to 3 sessions, I believe. We introduced it, guys, the basic idea of the game being a conventional tic-tac-toe game. We got a 2-player system set up. We got a 3x3 board, and then a player gets to place an X marker, then a circle, then an X, and a circle, with the goal being to go straight down 3, across 3, or a diagonal of 3. Now, through this project, we are highlighting some core concepts of variables, functions, loops, parameters, and especially user input, and also a new concept which we learned a couple of weeks ago about dictionaries and how we are able to use them to plot where the user has made their move. As always, guys, if you are confused as to what I'm talking about or are confused as to what was the code, which we have been doing for the past couple of weeks, that is all available in our Google Classroom. Please let me know if you do not have the code. I can always drop it in the chat, or you can always tune in to our YouTube channel and keep track that way as well. But speaking of last week, how about we talk about what we did in our last session? That being that we started making more and more way towards our tic-tac-toe project through asking the user for input. Through that input, we were able to check where the user could make a move. So if I turn the annotation tool on, say we had a 3x3 grid, then we asked the user for an input, and then if, say, the user said the first position, remembering that our grids are represented with positions. Remember, because we can't tell a computer, hey, put me in the middle. But can we communicate that idea? Absolutely. And the way we were doing that was assigning each of these grids, each of these empty boxes, a position from the numbers 1 through 9. So essentially, I'll load up the example which we were working on, But say I said, the user said, I want to make my X marker go in the 5th position. That tells the computer to place an X right there in the middle. And essentially last week, we were able to get that part working where we were able to physically show where the user had inputted their marker and make that look nice as well. And also we evaluated whether the user could even put that marker in that place. So say if I go back, say a user had placed a circle in the 1st position. Say the X player wants to place their marker on top. Well, you can't do that, right? That makes no sense. You can't just override somebody else's placement of their marker. Well, then we had some logic statements which were checking if there was an empty spot in our array, then and only then could the user make a move. And also by doing getting that separate player type of dynamic going in which one player could place an X marker and the other could place a circle marker, we got a 2-player functionality in which both players were able to go back and forth. As always, if you guys are getting confused, always be sure to drop a chat. But in a couple minutes, we will be going over the code from last week and starting this week's code, which is going to entail this. So this week, as I mentioned in the last session, we are going to be doing a bunch of more logic checks, meaning we're going to be writing a bunch of if-else statements. Now, why are we going to be writing a bunch of if-else statements? Well, because today's the day where we're going to be writing the code to check whether a player has won. So specifically, we're going to be writing code, which is going to check if I open the annotate again, say we have a grid. Today, we're going to write the code, which is going to check if a user has won. So say like the circle player, since there's a 3 in a row, that means that the person has won. So we're going to be writing some if-else statements to check if that case is possible. And likewise, the main concept which we are going to be using are going to be the if-else statements. And here is a quick little reminder of the possible winning conditions. Remember, there's straight across, there's downwards, and diagonal. And more specifically, we will be checking for 9 possible scenarios. I got 8 written down right there. There are going to be 9 because if you think about it, there's 3 ways to win downwards, 3 ways to win across. And oh, no, I was right. There's 2 diagonals. So there are a total of 8 scenarios which we will be checking for. So with those details out of the way, how about we actually get towards coding and continuing to work on our tic-tac-toe project. I'm going to be opening the link up to our online environment. I will also be dropping it in the chat below in case you would like to follow along. There we go. You can also find the link, guys, to our weekly code, which we've been writing in our Google Classroom as well. Give everybody a couple of minutes to get onto our website, and we'll get started shortly. All right, so hopefully you have made your way on over to the website. And guys, here is what we have worked on previously. Our first week, we started working on the dictionary concept, making sure that we could sort of visualize our board. So if I hit run, we can see that we got an empty and clean looking board where the user can make their moves. And last week, we started working on that idea of both of the users, it's a 2-player game, right? Being able to put their moves. So say I want the X player to go on the bottom left. I put the number 1 because corresponding, that's number 1 right there. So there we go. We got an X marker. Say I want to go right in the middle for the circle. We put number 5. Say I want to go in the top left. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 7, like that. And then say the X player goes in the, I don't know, let's go 6th position. And now I got a chance to win, right? I can put my marker in the 4th position and win the game. But we currently don't have the code towards making that work. And that is something which we shall be working on today. So I'm going to hit stop. All right. Oh. All right. All right, so guys, to get started working on this idea of performing those logic checks and making sure where and checking for possibilities of where and if the user can win, we got to start below and sort of indent down in our for loop, because essentially we're going to be checking every time whether a user has the possibility to win. However, logically thinking, if we just imagine a typical, right here, if you draw it, a typical 3x3 grid, right? At what turn does one of the users have the ability to win? So say I'll play as the X player, X right here. Okay, that's turn number one. Circle goes right here. That's number two. X goes right here. That's turn number three, because we're thinking in total, right? Circle goes right here. That's turn number four. Well, on turn number five, does the X player have the opportunity to win the game? So essentially, we're going to be using this counter variable, which we wrote and made last week, and going to be checking after the fifth turn has elapsed, and then we are going to check whether one of the players has won. So using that idea, what I'm going to do is firstly, we got to increment, and meaning we got to add one to our count variable. Now, where are we going to add one? Well, whenever a user is able to make a successful move, meaning instead of this if statement block, because remember this is checking and placing the user's marker wherever they make a move, if it is a valid move. And essentially, whenever the user makes a successful move, what we're going to do is add one to our counter like such. All right. Now, once we have that out of the way, what I'm going to do is just make sure that it's working correctly, and I'm going to print out what turn we are at. So current turn at, and I'm going to print out the counter variable. Hit run. So say I want to go at the first position, it should tell me the counter turn currently at 1, which we expected, then 2, currently at 2, then 3, and so on. So we got that variable working correctly. And now, guys, we move on to the actual checking and performing the logic statements. So as we mentioned, we have established that one of the users can only win after 5 minimum turns have elapsed. And that's the only way, because there has to be 5 pieces on the board, right, for one of the users to win. So what I'm going to do is do if the counter variable is greater or equal to number 5, opening close parentheses, squiggly brackets like such. Oh, I am still in my JavaScript mood. Remember, it is a colon in Python. All right. Now, since we have established that we're only going to be performing these checks every time the turns is greater than 5, what I'm going to do is go down and I'm going to actually write a function right here called check winners. And just leave it like that, opening close brackets. Remember to call a function. But the thing is that we currently don't have a function called check winners. Although we got the idea that we want to write a function which is going to check and evaluate to see if one of the users has won, we still don't have the code for that. So what I'm going to do is create a new function outside of our start official game function. So just make sure you're indented all the way to the left. Let's call it def, and then whatever you named your functions above, mine was check winners. Declare your function like such. And now here, our 8 scenarios will go. And those 8 scenarios are going to entail 3 across, 3 downwards, and lastly, we got the 2 diagonals going left and right, right? So with that logic understanding of how we're going to be checking for the winners, how about we get to actually typing out some code? So guys, we're gonna get started by creating. And how about we check? Actually, what I'll do is create a quick picture towards the left. And how about we get started by checking if one of the users has one in this top row. So in order to get started there, what I'm gonna do is sorry about that. All right, so what we're gonna do is my drawing got erased. We're gonna draw and check if this first row has been won. And the way we're gonna do this is that we're not gonna think about it in separate terms, meaning we're not gonna be like, we're not gonna write two separate if statements checking if player X has gotten it 3 in a row or player circle has gotten it 3 in a row. Essentially, we're gonna use this idea of abstraction. Remember, guys, how we can abstract our code, write less code to do the same thing, which at the end of the day is nice because we can have reusable code, and it's nice on our computer as well as we create larger and bigger projects. So what I'm going to do is start typing if whatever we called our board. So in my case, I called my board the board dictionary. So if the board dictionary at the 7th position, because remember, this is represented by 7th position, 8th position, and the 9th position. So if the 7th position of the board equals the same symbol as the 8th position on the board, which equals the same position, the same marker as the 9th position on the board, then we know that we have a match, right? So essentially what I'm saying is that if the 7th and 8th and 9th values in our dictionary, remember, the numbers right here represent a key, and then they have a corresponding value. If those values are the same, so for instance, if they all have the letter X inside of them, we know that our user has got a clean sweep, meaning they got a win because they had 3 in a row across the top row. So what we can do is write our colon, indent in there, and we can say, we can make a print statement saying, congratulations, you have won. But how can we make this a bit more specific? Meaning, how can I be like, okay, you have won. How about we say which player has won? Well, remember last week how we started working on this variable called marker, through which we were able to keep track of which player's turn it was? So what I'm going to do is say print, we can do print player, and then we can say marker has won. And if you do not want to do that, totally fine. It's just to be more specific. We can even just comment it out, whatever you want to do. Looks like we were getting an error for that part, so we will keep moving on. So just to make sure that this idea is sort of working in play, what I'm going to do, guys, is hit run and purposefully win across that top row. So place my X marker at the 7th position, make the other person go somewhere random, 8th, random. And then if I hit number 9, we should see the message, congratulations, you have won. And voila, there we go. We can see that the player X has won because they got 3 in a row across the top row. Now, how about we can certainly add some more print statements and make it look even nicer. So what I can do is write a print statement and say game over. And if I add a break, if I do a backslash and the number letter N, and then another backslash and the letter N, if I win across the top row, you'll see something cool happen with the print statement. So if I show what happens real quick, there we go. We see a sort of spacing occurring, right? Well, that's because we're using a backslash and then a letter N. And basically, guys, this is a little shorthand of being able to add a space between our print statements. All right, so now once we have our top row working, let's take a look, and we currently see that we're still being prompted by our computer to make a move. But why is that still happening? Shouldn't it be like if I won the game, game's over, done deal, no more, the other person shouldn't have a chance to win, right? Well, that's because our for loop is gonna run 9 times. Essentially, the way we have it currently is that our loop is gonna keep on running until the standard 9 times, because there's 9 spots on the board, have been filled out. So how do we make sure that our board can actually like stop, we can stop being prompted to keep on making a move? Well, there's multiple things which we can do here, but for now, we can, how about we create a variable? We can say a variable like check winner and set that equal to false right now. And essentially, this Boolean is going to be keeping track to see if the game has been won by one of the users. So currently, check winner is equal to false. So remember, in order to use it inside of our function, we got to do global and then the variable name, check winner, like that. And now, guys, what I'm going to do is, since our check winner is currently false, that means that nobody has won the game. However, if we have a case in which the user, like the top row, they win, we can set our variable equal to true, like such. Oh, and remember to declare your global variable inside of all the functions which you use it in. Give everybody a quick minute to catch up right there. All right. And now using this variable, we are going to essentially put it inside of our for loop to make sure that we aren't continuously asking the user for a move, even though they won the game. So what I'm going to do is do if the check winner Boolean variable is equal to false. That means that, hey, keep on running that code. Keep on asking the user if they have won. And essentially what we can do is just indent all of this code to right here. The way I did that, guys, was just I selected all the code and hit the tab button on my computer. That's a little shortcut you get to know just to move your code and indent it correctly. All right. So now, guys, if I hit the run button, say I want to pull off the sweep at the top, do that real quick. We see that we are not prompted for another move, meaning since I got a top 3 across the board, and we can fix the formatting, you can see that my third move didn't show up. We can definitely fix that and make sure that that is working correctly. But the main thing is that we're not being prompted by the computer to play and put a move again, meaning since we won the game, our computer knows that we won the game as well. Now, as to that issue of our board not being printed out correctly, that is because our board, our print board function is being called whenever the user has not won. So essentially, if you're thinking in that way, we got to call this function again whenever we do win. So what I'm going to do is go inside of our if statement and just paste that function like such. This way, our board will be printed out just to make to show us where the user won. And if we want to make this look nice, what we can do is just paste it at the top, and we can even add a little print with just empty quote marks to add that spacing. And now if I hit run, say I want to pull that sweep at the top, 7th position, the 8th, and the 9th. There we go. We see that our board is so nicely formatted. We can see that triple across the top. Congratulations, we have won. And then our game over statement. All right, so we got the main idea working, but the thing is, our code, we're not going to be able to see if a winner happened in all of the other scenarios, meaning we still got 7 other scenarios left. We got check if the user won in the middle, they won at the 3rd column, they won in the first column, 2nd column, 3rd column, the 3 rows, and then the diagonals across as well. So to do that, we have to just manipulate our if statement. Essentially, we got all the right code right here, but we just gotta change where we're looking at in the board to check for the other positions. So what I'm gonna do is copy this if statement, hit enter, backspace, get the indentations correctly. And essentially what I'm going to do is type else if another if statement. But this time I'm going to be looking at a different row. More specifically, since we already got that first row at the way top covered, I'm going to focus on this second row. Now this second row, guys, remember the positions it represents are the position number 4, number 5, and number 6. So that's what we're going to look at. I'm going to look at the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th positions. Like such. And remember that in Python, it is not an else if because I'm thinking too much in JavaScript today. Been coding in that. So remember in Python, it is an elif. This is equivalent in JavaScript to that idea of an else if. So elif, like such. And now, guys, essentially, we just apply the same mentality to all of the other scenarios which can occur. So if you guessed it, what we're going to do is a lot of copy and pasting and a little bit of manipulating our code. So copy this else if statement, paste it down below in the correct indentations, like there. And now, how about we take a look at our final row? So this bottom row, meaning the positions at 1, 2, and 3. So let's change it to that. So the positions 1, 2, and 3. Once again, same mentality, same concept. Copy that, and then just paste it. Now we're going to take a look at the columns. I'll clear it to make it nice looking, so we'll get that board. How about we take a look at our first column? This column represents the positions 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, then 7. So we're going to check for the positions 1, 4, and 7. So 1, 4, and 7. Same mentality. Now let's check at the second column. Check at the positions 2, 5, and 8. Change our code for that column to 5 and 8. And then our last column is going to be this third column, representing the positions 3, 6, and 9. Once again, copy that else if statement, paste it down below, make sure it is indented correctly. Looking at the 3rd, the 6th, and the 9th positions. So now, guys, we got our 3 columns and our 3 rows being checked for and evaluated to see if a winner has occurred. But we're still missing out on our diagonals. Cannot forget about those, right? So we have to evaluate this left diagonal and this right diagonal, because remember, a user could go 3 in the left diagonal or 3 in the right diagonal. So what I'm going to do is, once again, copy this else if statement, go back, indent, paste. We'll do the right diagonal first, looking at the positions 1, 5, and number 9. And then, if you guessed it, paste that statement one last time, the final and 8th time. And now we're going to check at the positions 3, 5, and 7, like such. All right, guys. So that is all. That is all of the 8 scenarios in which the user can win. So if I hit the run button now and let's see how this works, say I'll go. How about we check if a diagonal is working? So the first position, second user can go wherever they want. The other position will need to be the 5th. Looks like we can see that diagonal forming, right? The 2 X's. Third user can go wherever they want. And then the 9th position, and voila. We can see our code worked A-okay. We got that right diagonal being checked for. Congratulations, we have won. And we got the game over prompt. And we're not being told to play the game over and over again, meaning our computer code is working correctly. Perfectly. So we can, all right. So that is the main concept for this week, guys. We can see that our check winners function, although a bit long, the idea is central and core. We're just checking to see where and if the user has won. and just abstracting our code with our writing it in a function. All right, guys. So that wraps up our Python session for this 4-month anniversary. For next week, guys, we're going to be continuing to work on our tic-tac-toe project. I will be seeing you guys, if this is bi-weekly, in not next Monday, but the Monday after. And in that session, guys, we will be adding the final pieces. Those final pieces entailing a restart functionality, some more personalization, and we will be just wrapping up this project. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. Hopefully you guys enjoy that fun fact, seeing the reach of Python, and are enjoying this tic-tac-toe project. I hope to see you guys in our web development course this Friday. If not, I'll catch you guys back in 2 weeks. But as always, guys, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys. Take care.